So, it has been a while since Natlan came out, and still there are a lot of different opinions about it so far. And what's great, I guess, is that we still have a whole year of this. So I feel like a lot of people don't understand why Genshin is getting so much backlash right now. Because this version is really bad. Like it's really bad. You know, Genshin has been shooting themselves in the foot for the past couple years, I could argue. This game is known for its very loyal fans and whatnot, so this update is it's disappointing, definitely. I mean, everyone and their mama used to be playing this game, and a lot of people still do, but it went from
and the game award goes to Genshin Impact
to being the scum under people's shoes, and it does make you think,
what did he do to make them niggas that mad?
When a new version comes out, Genshin will typically post a teaser for the next nation coming out, and each nation is based on a culture inspired by real life, like, people. For example, the last nation being based in France. While some could say the hate for Natlan started when the trailer dropped, one could argue that it started way beyond that, which is with a nation that came out 2 versions ago, Sumeru. Sumeru is a pretty controversial nation through and through. From the Archon quest, the tedious exploration, the R&R quest that apparently takes people like 15 hours. I wouldn't know, I never started it. But also, the characters were extremely controversial. Also, not to mention the random racism that was constantly throughout Sumeru, but, you know, I guess we'll ignore that for now. Genshin is a game about cultural differences. It was given the low expectation of diverse characters, including skin tones. As Sumeru's story progressed, it became apparent that Genshin design team allegedly has something against darker skin tones. This nation was the first time there was a huge divide within the community. Nahida was one of the most hated Archons for quite some time because people were so mad that she was so pale. People were even poking fun at the design by showing that she's lighter than Family Guy characters. That's not to say that there were no brown characters at all. Take Dia, for example. While her skin tone is perfectly fine in retrospect, there's nothing wrong with being the skin tone at all. However, based on her upbringing, she should definitely be darker. If she grew up in a desert where the sun is constantly beaming on her,
why are you white?
Genshin has created some of the most beautiful character designs I've ever seen, so it definitely was a conscious choice to make her this light. Sino, too, both of their skin tones are constantly battling to see who can be lighter. It wasn't that Genshin couldn't make her darker either. They had actually proven several times that they knew how to make a good skin tone palette that incorporated the culture they were inspired by. There are plenty of brown people within Sumeru. They're just either an NPC or an enemy, so non-playable. Some of the most gorgeous, beautiful designs were wasted on enemies. Just look at this, for example. Look, I understand that any fandom has its share of Debbie Downers, okay? Some people just find joy in complaining about things. But this was definitely the first major divide between people who play the game. Before then, it was just disagreements about who's the strongest Archon or which Archon quest was the best. But this clearly had a hold on the community. The reason this is important, though, is that this argument had a rebuttal. People would shoot down those upset about this with one simple sentence, and I remember it clearly. Natlan will be different. People would argue that Natlan's characters would fix this all, that it would have more brown playable characters, that Hoyoverse would create the beautiful melanin characters we've been asking for. So then when Fontaine finally ended and Natlan's character trailer came out, this is what we got. But this time, there's no excuse. This is basically Hoyoverse doubling down on everything they did or didn't do, and even worse, couldn't even make the Archon look like the culture she's based on. With this huge disappointment of a teaser, there was already a lot of people dropping the game, and this is when the boycotting first began. And let me just say, I do think that Moeka's design specifically is really cool. I love her design. Like, I don't have an issue with her. I actually really like her character as well, but you know, there's just a time and a place for it, and unfortunately, it's not right now. Natlan has often been described as one big mess, and that's honestly how it feels at the moment. Not only are the skin tones not accurate, but even if you ignore that and focus on the designs, even those are not received well by the community. Chaska's design was hated on from the moment she was released, and I think the only reason people even tolerate her is because mechanically she's a good character to have. Natlan's landscaping is very tedious to explore, so having a character that can literally fly from mountain to mountain would definitely be really convenient. Just look at some of the previous designs created, and then look at what we're given now. Look at Auroron. There's so much going on in his design, I'm not even sure where to start. Not only that, but his design feels racist because of his character's inspiration being completely butchered. He's a good character, I think, but no one would care because his design is atrocious. And you know, maybe you're sitting there saying, but Aki, Chaska's design really isn't that bad, or Auroron's design really isn't that bad. Now, I would say that you're wrong, like just objectively, you're wrong, but even if you ignore, if you somehow enjoy their designs, the way that Chaska acts throughout the Archon quest is probably the cringiest, most skin-crawling acting I have ever felt throughout Genshin Impact.
What the hell, boy?
The story is okay at best. Personally, I think the hype around Capitano is the only thing keeping me slightly interested. And what's worse for Genshin is simply that there are other games to try out. It's no longer 2020 or 2021 where the range of gacha games was pretty low. There's competition now with Wuthering Waves or Wuthering Waves. Wuthering Waves is just a good example of a gacha game that came and swooped some fans off their feet. And while it's not really my thing, a lot of people are loving that game more and more, while Genshin is...
What the fuck was that?
I mean, just look at the like ratio between Moeka's drip marketing and Sunday's. Genshin isn't the only gacha game anymore. And I understand that Hoyoverse is the same company, okay? Like, moving from Genshin isn't that big of a deal if you're just moving to Honkai or Zenless. And plus, I just think Natlan came out at a bad time, especially from the peak that was Fontaine, and then now we have to play with...
Trust has unleashed her suppressed beast.
These folk. At this point, only two people can save Natlan, Hoyoverse, Dainsliff, or Mr. Worldwide himself. Just pretend this Archon quest didn't exist, give us more Conria lore, and call it a day. Because this is just such a big flop, and I don't even like to use that word. I try to understand both sides of the argument. You know, some people are saying that, like, if you're upset about this, then you're just nitpicking or never grateful or whatever. But it's a game about representation at the end of the day, and the fact that they're neglecting to represent this specific side of humanity it's just something we shouldn't be quiet about, definitely. Again, it's almost 2025. Why are we still acting so wishy-washy about skin tones? but that's just my personal opinion. I'm curious to see what you guys think about Natlan. Are you still playing the game, or are you venturing out to other games because of it? Me personally, I've been playing Zenless more. Yes, Gunner game, yeah, whatever. If you watched this far, thank you very much. I'm excited to finally start my YouTube and stuff. And yeah, see you next time.